Ladies and gentlemen, today we embark on a journey through one of the most pivotal moments in American history, the American Civil War. This conflict, which raged from 1861 to 1865, left an undeniable mark on the United States' future and its people, shaping them and making them different people. To understand the war, we must go deeper into the causes, the key events, and the consequences of the war. The causes of the war, like the root causes of the war, are complex and deeply intertwined. One of the central issues was slavery, obviously. The southern states heavily relied on labor-intensive crops and, jobs, such as picking cotton and tobacco, and the South was heavily institutionalized or wanted the preservation of the institution of slavery, while the northern states were increasingly rejecting the idea of slavery and just didn't like it. The ideological difference of the two sides and the economic aspects of slavery were ultimately what caused this deep divide between the two states. Another major cause was states' rights versus the federal government. Southern states believed that the federal government was infringing on their rights and sovereignty, particularly with slavery. While the northern states, on the other hand, saw the need for a strong federal government to maintain the unity of the Union. And then some major key events in the war was Fort Sumter, where the war began when the Confederates attacked Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina in 1861. This was like the key start of the war between the North and South. Another big one was obviously the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. This battle is like the turning point of the war because for the first 2 years the South was winning, and this war really turned the tide. The Union at the time was led by George Meade. He successfully, took back Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army and not letting the South go deeper into Pennsylvania. Another major event was the Emancipation Proclamation. This was an executive order by President Lincoln declaring all states, the federal government thought them as forever free. And while it didn't end slavery, it ended slavery everywhere. Well, it kind of ended slavery everywhere. So if the North were to win the war, it would have ended slavery everywhere. A final major key event of the war is Appomattox Courthouse. In 1865, General Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant, effectively ending the war and just being a really big part in the Union, and then ultimately kicking off the nation's healing process. But obviously, there are many key consequences of the Civil War that were far-reaching and profound. Firstly, it abolished slavery. Though the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, this marked a significant step towards racial equality, though it would still take probably another 100-ish years for African Americans to gain full civil rights. It was still a major turning point in that. Lastly, the war also solidified the federal government's authority over the states and reinforced the principles of a whole united union. The issue of states' rights was settled by the end of the war, and economically, the war had both positive and negative impacts. While it devastated the southern economy, obviously with the loss of the free labor and the slaves, it accelerated the industrialization of the North and laid the groundworks for the country's emergence as an industrial and economic powerhouse in the following decades. Overall, the Civil War left a deep scar on the American psyche, and obviously with its immense loss of life, with around 620 soldiers killed and widespread destruction across the entire nation, it just remains a big fee factor in division and discord. In conclusion, the war was just a really important moment for the country's history. It was conflict deep-rooted in the country's history over slaves, states' rights, and the future of the country. And this ultimately was just a major part in building the country's future layout and really making the Union join together.